all these types of bodies for structural steel, metal buildings, canopies. Okay, the first one we go over is snug tight. First thing you gotta do when you put these bolts through the steel, you can't, if the holes ain't lined up, you can't take a hammer and drive them through and burr up all the threads and batter the ends. If you damage a bolt or nut, you have to take it back out and put in a new one. Or if the holes won't line up and you can't cut them with a cutting torch, you can ream them to a small degree as long as we go back through the structural engineer. Somebody signs off on it.
Yeah.
On the snug tight condition, most generally metal buildings, you've got two plies. That's like a purlin top of a beam. You pull it down where all your plies touch, and then you can tighten it up. If you got two regular steel wrenches, you can iron worker wrenches, whatever you can put on it with them will work on snug tight. Or you can hit it 3 or 4 licks with a iron wrench impactor. If you've got, a lot of times we run in, you've got a beam that sits back in 2 flanges. A normal thickness steel, generally it's pretty easy to pull them up. Same applies with a wrench or tighten. But you get into big heavy beams with a flange on each side, you can't get them pulled up, it's not that critical. It's not detrimental to the connection on snug tight. Alright, you've got 4 types of pre-tensioning joints. The first one we'll go over is 4 methods to get to the pre-tensioning joints. Alright, the first one you got is turning the nuts. You go through your same steps, your hose has got to line up, you got to get your plies together to do pre-tensioning. You got to get all your plies together. So when you get them all together, and here, this is a chart on both lengths, how many turns. How you got a half, 2/3, 5/6, 1 turn. The longer your bolt gets, not go. Generally, what we're going to be into is 1/3 turn, 1/2 turn, and 2/3. If both faces are up good together, you're going to go 1/3 turn. That's on a bolt length. It's 4 times the diameter. Then after you leave that, 8 times the diameter, it's a 1/2 turn, and then 12 times your 2/3 of a turn. That's if both plies are together. If one face normal to the bolt axis, the other is sloped, not more than 1 to 20, it's going to apply in the first column 1/2 turn, 2/3 turn, 5/6 turn. If both faces sloped, not more than 1 to 20 for normal to bolt axis, you got 2/3 of a turn, 5/6 turn, and 1 full turn. So when you bring your plies together, you've got your bolt, you run it up, you get your plies together, you got to mark you take a marker, you need to mark your nut side, make sure you hold it. You got to mark your nut to the bolt. Then you go 1/2 turn, 2/3, full, whatever applies. But on the bolt lengths, any of that, the type of bolting system, bolt lengths, grade of bolts, and all will be on a pre-meeting for the steel wrench. Chalk, Tony, me, somebody will have that. It'll be on site. But you need, when you change bolts, if you're confused, you gotta ask. That one's the turn of the nut. The biggest thing with any of these four types is the bolts need to be kept dry. They don't need to be rusty, laid out. You need to keep them in dry storage. Next type will be the twist-off type. And what they'll come, most of the time, the ones we used them at Flemingsburg, on that Medical Arts. Another project, we used them all. Then we gotta keep them clean and dry, and they all will come oil. And which are guns, we rent those from that company and they send them. And when the gun comes, which will be up to Chalk or Tony or me, they should have a certificate where they've been calibrated and tested. And it should be in the box. If they don't get it out here at the office, you need to get that back to the office where you get a copy. Which it's the same deal, putting your bolts in, getting your pliers pulled up, and then put your gun on. Make sure they're lined up. Because if they're way apart and you drive them in, you start pulling them up, and they'll start wrinkling the threads, and they won't ring off right on the head.
So when they're tightening it, the head just comes off of them?
Yeah, they're a star head. You got like a star end that sticks out here on your bolt. And you got your nut, and you got your washer. And any time with these four types, you can, with that twist off type, you're always gonna have to bolt tighten the nut side. Cause that gun, it goes over that and it turns, but you gotta make sure your washer is always behind your bolt, cause if it's against the steel, it won't ring off right. And it holds the nut and turns the bolt. And then when it gets so many tensile pounds, it just rings the head off. If you're doing it's twist off type, you can't. But any of these other, if you're in a place, you can't hold the nut, but you can't turn the nut. You can turn the bolt, but you need to switch your washer from friction against it the same as if you tighten the other side. And here on this, we got another chart on direct tension indicator. Yeah. This is on direct tension indicator. We use these, I can't remember what project. But with this system, you gotta make sure you use one of these applications. You can't just mix and match or whatever. Because what we do, you got the same procedure, get your bolt in, where you don't have any burrs, damaging your thread. You got rusty bolts again, rusty, bad bolts and nuts, you gotta get new. On the direct tension indicator, it shows that DTI gap measure. And that's what, when you start tightening that down, that's what they're gonna come back and measure. You gotta be within so close. I don't know, seemed like we used them somewhere. But you got, let's see, says that, care must be taken to ensure the direct tensioning arches are oriented to bear against the hardened bearing surface, the bolt head or nut, or against a hardened flat washer. You can't get it reversed and stick that against the steel with a primer on. It's critical on it. Calibrated wrench, pre-tensioning. It's the same bolts, get them through, same in any step, undamaged. It's these guns, this calibration, I think you have to calibrate it every day. When we rent them, it comes with a wrench and then you calibrate it every day. But what's going to dictate it is your air hose length and your compressor. You can't take one day 20 foot of hose and use it, and then the next day take 200 foot of hose and a different air compressor. You have to apply the same practice every day. We got 150 foot of hose and we test it, you don't need but 20, leave the rest on the ground. That way you can stay consistent every day. Yeah. Yeah. But, critical things in it, the finishing tolerance of the bolt and nut threads. That's what I'm saying. You need to take care and not damage them. Uniformity, degree, and condition of lubricant. What it's talking about is your lubricant for the gun. You'll use, we start with one type and that's what you got to stick with. You can't use our tool oil today. Well, I ain't got none, we use 31. Change it every day. The shop or job site condition including dust, dirt, corrosion on the threads. Again, clean bolts. The friction that exists to a varying degree between the turned element, nut face bearing area, the bolt head, and the sporting surface. You know, if you got mud crammed around your bolts and stuff, you just can't do it. Here again, it talks again about your air supply parameters on impact wrenches. It results from the length of the air lines, the number of wrenches. And you can't use 4 different impacts on a job because they're all different. The condition, lubricant, power supply for the torque wrenches. You know, if we're using electric one day you got 50 foot cord, the next day you got 300, changes it. The voltage loss. The repeatability of performance, any wrench that senses or responses to the level of applied torque. She's making these, and everybody they'll be getting one out. They'll start issuing them. We had a revised version that you're getting today, but she's gonna fix a book and everybody will be receiving. That's on a project that has charts. Washer size. All that's predetermined. We don't do any design or any of that. It all comes back to the construction engineer. There's some more charts. Gives you specified minimum bolt pre-tension and kips. And when you're calibrating them, it'll tell you the calibration machine that you'll have. It'll tell you that, you know, 1/2 inch on a 325, an 18, you're gonna have 12, and on a 490 bolt, you're 15. It'll have a chart. But any of the calibration testing will go back through the superintendent.